right, hey everybody, it is September 12th, 2014's weekly wrap-up. And what happened? We released Step 67, and Step 67 is an important lesson as far as I'm concerned. It is all about the lyrics. You know, I spent a lot of time in this whole advanced course introducing you to so many different sounds, arpeggios and scale patterns, and finally got to this point of talking to you about how to affect the melody line in all these different ways. And I say all these different ways, I'm talking about phrasing, I'm talking about ornamentation, all of the things for the past few lessons that we've been working on in relationship to the melody line. But the most important thing of all in relationship to the melody line is understanding how to interpret the lyrics. And there's a lot of good ideas in that direction in this particular lesson to get you up to speed to thinking about different ways that you're going to actually deliver that melody line and really get in touch with those lyrics. Really important. Understanding how to bring those lyrics and make them conversational. So you're singing, but at the same time you're really communicating the message of the lyrics to the audience, to the listeners. Super important. So I waited to very close to the end of the whole course for this lesson so I could emphasize how important I thought the lesson was, or is. And anyway, that is the lesson this week, Step 67. It's all about the lyrics. Musical tip of the week. Let's talk a little bit more about breathing, but not necessarily just what you think. I'm going to start with what everybody thinks about in relationship to breathing. Here's what you need to know about breathing. Now, right now I'm sitting down, and lots of times when I explain things to my students, I'm standing up. I may do both here just to get a point across. First of all, it doesn't matter if you're standing or sitting in relationship to breath and singing, as long as you have good body alignment, meaning that you're not slumping in any way that takes head, neck, and torso out of good straight alignment. If you're getting good straight body alignment, everything will naturally do what it needs to do. Now, I think that's a great word, natural. There's terms like natural breathing, be very natural in what you're doing. And that is correct when it comes to singing. You don't want to overload or overcrowd your lungs, pack a bunch of air in like that, and see the chest rise up really, really high and all of those things. That's not the proper technique towards getting a good breath. Everything is very natural, and when you see a great singer sing, it looks like they're basically doing nothing, because the process here is taking a breath, getting a little expansion, allowing the air to naturally come up, and put the amount of air in your lungs that you need to execute the phrase that you're singing. That is what you need to learn how to do. Now, easier said than done sometimes. Sometimes we have longer phrases, sometimes we have shorter phrases, but again, you never need to pack. We shouldn't see the chest rising or the shoulders rising or any of those things, or a stiff look. You know, that's not what's going on at all. It's much more natural than that. Again, you take a low breath. I always like to say, if you think of this in a natural way, don't overpack the air, but think about a glass and think about the air or the water going to the bottom of the glass and filling up to the top of the glass in a very natural, relaxed, comfortable way. So that means don't take a breath and then lock here, or feel that you've got to raise the chest here to get the air up there. Feel that the air just naturally goes into you, down like so, and up until it feels like it actually does move up into the chest, because that's what that feeling is, the upper part of your lungs, and you're just feeling the air going, filling up the lungs and coming up naturally. And again, if you pack the air and take too much air like that, when you do that, you're going to create disbalanced air pressure against your vocal cords. Boy, is that a big can of worms when it comes to talking to different teachers about that concept. Because some teachers are going to tell you to do exactly what I'm telling you not to do. Pack the air, fill it up. Some teachers, not all teachers. We're not in agreement. My feeling from all of my understanding to get people to sing through their registers and their breaks and so they don't jam up as they go from one passaggio or range point to another. Chest, mix, head, and then even superhead voice, or what's known as whistle register or flageolet, depending upon what your background is in singing. All whistle register, flageolet, and superhead voice all mean the same thing. It's the upper end and last adjustment, in my way of thinking, of the vocal folds. That in chest voice we have a particular adjustment. In mix we have as we move from chest to mix, there's an adjustment. As we move from mix to head, there's an adjustment. And as we move from head all the way up to the very top part of head voice, there's another slight adjustment. And that slight adjustment requires even less air distribution. And this is really hard to explain just to say it in words, because by the time you get to the very highest part of your range, the truth is, as you sing higher, the less and less amount of air push you need. But you do need what you need, and this is the ambiguous part. Means that you've kind of got to discover in your own body, taking in the air, feeling the flow, feeling yourself in your lower chest. Oh, feeling that fold happen right here. Down the breath again. Oh, but even though I took a breath, I don't need a ton of air to push through my chords. In fact, it'll just jam me up. And then, oh, but you know what? There's something past that. And the easiest way to find that, I've always thought, is to shave off the air pressure. And there's a few different tricks, but one of the tricks is just to get a little bit of vocal fry high up in your range, and think of like a squeaky door. And in that squeaky door sound, you got, and you got this that little funny sound sort of coming up like a little guinea pig might make or something. That puts me in that whole. And I got to tell you, and I'm sure you're laughing at me right now, but I have to tell you that what that feels like in that area right there is way less air than I have to come up from this note and then turn it into I made another adjustment. There's another physical adjustment there. But when I make that adjustment, no pressure on my throat, I don't get tired, I don't hurt myself, and I go up in the high notes. I'm not doing all this and pushing my head out and grimacing and doing all these crazy things to hit a high note. But I do allow that high note to be what it is. And that high note is thinner and smaller with less heft of air pushing underneath it. And that keeps on happening from what heft you need in chest to what heft you need in mix to what heft you need in head voice to what heft you need up into superhead voice. Now, somebody out there, if they've got knowledge in voice, might be saying, well, wait a minute, isn't whistle register and some of these things you're talking about just for the high soprano singers? And there is a discovery of whistle register and a certain thing that happens to the vocal cords of a soprano that is a little different, but I can make this explanation to every voice quality, and everybody can get a few more high notes, maybe another minor thirds worth of high notes without tension up in the upper end of their range, regardless of what it is you want to call that part of everybody's range. I, after all these years of working with people, definitely can see, feel, hear, not just in myself, but in my students and even people on recordings and famous singers. I can hear them making these adjustments very naturally. And as they make these adjustments, I can hear the sound and where it's going, and so can you. You just need, it needs to be pointed out to you so you can start to listen to what's going on. Then you start to understand that the qualities do change when someone's singing, hey, and going to something like that. But we can take that and put a little bit more resonance and compression into that sound, and suddenly it'll blend more to the resonance and sound of the lower notes. Now, I've sort of jumped around and talked about a lot of things here, not just breathing. Let me go back to breathing for a moment and say this. You want to take a breath, a low, relaxed, comfortable breath. It goes down. You get expansion. Comes up naturally. You take the amount of air that you need for the phrase that you're singing. A longer phrase, you're going to need a little bit more air. A shorter phrase, you won't need as much air. In all cases, you don't overload or pack the air in hard, because that will always cause too much pressure as you're singing through these registers I was just speaking of, and you will jam up somewhere along there. If you don't jam up, it's because you have figured out how to not create that pressure from bottom to top. And even when you're starting on your low notes, oh, don't go too thick. Oh, if you go like that, you're going to jam up when you try to get into mix. So even in your chest voice, after you get the proper amount of air, think less half. Oh, as I'm going up, I'm in my chest voice, but I'm in my lighter chest voice to feel these transitions. And that's what's so important. Get good at these transitions. Go all the way up, make all 4 of those adjustments, come all the way back down again. If it hurts, it's wrong. If it feels good, you're in a better position to know that you're doing the right things. It's more what you feel like than what you even sound like in the beginning, but there should be a very consistent sound going on from bottom to top. And what vowels do you use? Well, ultimately you use all of the vowels. But right now, best thing I think, start with just maybe even just like a hum with the lips closed. For some reason, closing the mouth and equalizing out the pressure and going light that way, I think lets you feel more it's easier for you to feel it that way. And then move from that into a new. So if I go into a new, I got Did you hear me switch from super high head voice into mix, down into chest? I tried to exaggerate a little bit that time, but still do it correctly. So, and it doesn't matter what voice, what your age is or what your voice is, you can work on doing whatever your voice will do naturally. Don't push yourself or try to just necessarily sing the notes I'm singing. Sing what's comfortable for you. Find a low, comfortable note that's comfortable for your voice. Come up, move it up, and see if you can sort of feel these different places in your voice as you're singing up in the highest of notes. Use that little squeaky door sound to help you find the highest part of your range, and make sure that you move from your head voice into that, and then from that back down into your head voice, into the tension of mix, down into chest. And this is the way it works. Loose, to a certain amount of tension, to an adjustment to loose, to a certain amount of tension, to adjustment to loose, to a certain amount of tension, to adjustment to loose with less. And then when you come down, it's just the opposite. Tension to loose, tension to loose, tension to loose. And when you come from your head voice into your mix, that's the hardest place for people to sort of get the coordination of that. Once you understand it, if you understand what I'm talking about, you're nodding your head, yeah, yes. He's really telling the truth about what's going on. But if you don't understand what's going on, I'm just going to try to explain it to you a little bit more. As you're coming down into your range and you're moving into your mix, the high part of the tension of mix is very different than the loose part of the tension of your head voice. And when you cross over that on the way down, it's always a little more difficult. And most people skip a lot of what their mix is and just jump right into chest. And you can hear that in their voice. So when you come down from head voice to mix, you really want to be making sure that you got this. See, that was a ooh, that was my mix. Hear it? Okay, and that tension felt different as I'm coming down. Like I won't go to the super head. I'll just go to head voice. Ooh, right there. Ooh, ooh, right over there. Making that transition right there is sometimes the most difficult, and people have a tendency to go ooh. That's what they have a tendency to do. That's because you don't understand it exists in the proper way. And you haven't worked enough in that area of your voice to really depend upon it, experience it, and know what you need to do in that part of your voice. That's what singing's all about, learning how to do that. Now, some people have no problem doing that whatsoever, and others have gigantic problems doing that. For everybody, regardless of your ability, always working on smoothing that out And getting better at that is a way to improve your singing. Tip of the week. Now, if you're on YouTube watching this, I just gave you a lot of great information. The real deal. Come on over to totallyvocals.com. There's a beginning, intermediate, advanced voice course. You need to understand what I just talked about there, but you need exercises to help strengthen you. You need to understand that vowel consonant combinations in words, even if you can do that in one sound, still there's a lot to understand how to pull all of this together the right way. But that's a great head start. Anybody that can start to make that transition, understand the transitions in their voice. Anyway, come on over to totallyvocals.com. Sign up for the free course. Register for the free membership, and jump around the site and look at all the free previews and take all the lessons that you will get for free by signing up, and then realize that there's so much more. There's a harmony course. There's a course that teaches you how to develop vibrato. There's a course that teaches you ear training. There's a jazz scat singing course. There's harmony courses. There's songs broken down into all of the harmony parts done the correct way. There's so much here. It grows all the time. And famous singers on the site as well. Interviews with them and learning how they look at things. So come on over, totallyvocals.com.